So I talk a lot about transformation. It's the work that I do. And I realize that a lot of people, and even myself, even though I've been in this field for quite some time, it's this deep initiatory journey that is hard to even explain and hard to necessarily define sometimes for folks who haven't really been in that process or who've been in it in an unconscious way versus really stepping onto a conscious journey of transformation. Um, and I just wanted to explain a little bit about what that actually means, how it can change your life, and then how to actually do it. And so, for example, with illness, I'll use the example of illness because that's my personal one, but this can be applied as well in relationships, in other behaviors, in whether you have addictions, and also coping strategies that come from PTSD or trauma. But it's possible to be going along in life and um, things are staying the same. They're staying basically stable. It's also possible to be going along in life and things are actually devolving. So there's not the right changes being made to correct things that are going in a direction that's the antithesis of health or the antithesis of a good relationship or the antithesis of the kind of work that actually aligns with your soul's calling. Um, and that would be like a devolving path. How do you step onto a path that's evolving? Um, and so, well, there is this concept of the third way. And this is where instead of sort of succumbing to uh, crises or challenges or problems and collapsing, and also not fighting or resisting, but somehow transmuting and alchemizing the things that arise in our life. They become portals that actually take us higher into a new frequency. They take us, I don't even know if higher is the right word because it's just bigger, more expansive, because sometimes it's deeper. Usually there's depth and height, so it's actually more expansive is really the way to think about it. And we see this, for example, when we're doing regenerative healing, which is root cause healing, and that's very different than managing symptoms. It's very different than trying to make a pain quiet or an emotion quiet. Instead, what it involves is actually getting on board with this concept that all things are part of a whole, an interconnected whole. And so if we can take the circumstances in our lives, whatever they might be, scarcity, um, you know, the same conflict showing up in our relationships again and again, the same health symptoms showing up in our body again and again. Instead of thinking of it as this annoying thing that we need to get rid of to get on track, how can we make it the path? How can we read it, interpret it, and learn how to walk through that portal? Because what it's going to do is going to deepen us and it's going to grow and take us higher and it's going to grow us and expand us. When we are living an evolutionary life path, that's what's happening. We know how to leverage our past to create a future that's better. We know how to leverage our pain to create pleasure. We know how to leverage um, whatever shows up really in life in order to in order to be the most impactful in a positive way that we can in our time here. And I really had to pause because it's like it's not always about personal gain. It's often and here's the thing is that this idea that personal gain and collective well-being are at odds somehow. And I don't think that's true. I think that concept is partly why things are so devolutionary, not evolving, but devolving in a lot of ways. And sort of the argumentation around that is creating a lot of like a not very coherent narrative and a not very evolutionary narrative. But I'm gonna not go too far into the collective philosophy here because I want to just explain what this means for you. So what does it look like when you step out of the devolutionary path or the stuck path and actually start to make choices that are going to grow you and lean into the challenges in your life and the conditions that you've previously considered are just stuck points and you just identify with them? I'm just a person who never makes more than this amount of money. I'm just a person who will always have histamine flares my whole life and will have to be on mast cell stabilizers. I'm just a person who's depressed. Like everyone in my life is going to have to accept that because that's just who I am. I'm just a person who blah, blah, blah. Like that's the end of the line for me. Um, Now, I'm not suggesting to reject these things because that would actually be the opposite of the path of transmutation. I'm suggesting the third way, which is transmutation. What happens when we begin to lean into these things with curiosity and care and listening and that creative agency of being the alchemist and the master of our lives? Well, what starts to happen is things that have been stuck a certain way for a long time begin to shift. Opportunities begin to open, ideas begin to form that we never thought were possible when we thought we only had choices A, B, C, or D. Suddenly we have choices E, F, all the way to Z sometimes. We have many more choices in how to respond to situations than we did before. Our world becomes more multidimensional. Uh, where it seems like black or white, a gray area forms, a doorway opens, platform 9 3/4. Um, so this can look like new people coming into our life who are inspiring us in ways that we didn't know we could have before in our relationships, opportunities, income streams, changes in the body, uh, things that have been stuck and stagnant for years. I'm thinking of a couple of my clients, one who like had like a chronic nail biting pattern for her entire life. And then after a certain amount of sessions, she just told me it stopped and she never had the urge to do it again. And others have reported clenching or tightness in parts of their body that they didn't even realize were chronically clenched or tight. And then after a certain amount of work, they didn't have that anymore. And not through PT or through some kind of like activating breath work or particular modality that was working on it. Although those do have a place and they can help show the body a direction if it needs it. So those are important too. But what I'm saying is that it just let go, like the pattern stopped. The old pattern was replaced with a healthier pattern. And that's often the way to go about it. The way to step into this way of living and being is to learn how to replace an old pattern with a new pattern that's better, that's more aligned, that's healthier, that's more expansive, so that the old pattern can let go. We don't have to fight it away. It just kind of dissolves because it isn't needed anymore. It's finished its job. How do we show our body and our nervous system and our mind that it's safe to let it go? Well, to really step into that greater pattern is the work of the work of learning to heal the nervous system. And I really love that movie, The Biggest Little Farm, where the couple moves from LA apartment out into a big monocrop culture, piece of land that was just like old citrus and avocado trees, totally dead soil. It's like rock hard. And they hire a permaculturist mentor to help them totally revamp the land. First thing they do is like tear down all those trees and turn them into compost and build a giant worm bin to start to break down the soil and start to repopulate it with minerals. It takes a full 7 years for the soil to be completely regenerated because it's foundational work. This is similar with the nervous system. When our nervous systems have not been deeply fertile and rich, for most of our lives, which is the case for most of us, not just due to trauma and our culture, but also due to lifestyle patterns and the things that are not going in accordance with nature's law and not evolving, but actually devolving. I won't talk about the specifics of that in this video, but that's a large part of our work in the sanctuary and in supporting our nervous system to shift as well, and our bodies and our health. Um, so our nervous system is similar to that farm and that it takes a lot of dedication and time and consistency to turn around the pattern of devolution and like a stuck state of not actually dying and being born again and churning and fertilizing, but like it's just like stuck in a rigid place. It's not actually moving through the cycles of like it's dead soil in the sense of like I think it's kind of a funny word because true death is actually movement, is actually life force continuing and like remaking itself and being born again. But if it doesn't have the oomph or the power to do that. Like it's like there's no life force. There's nothing there. It's hard to re uh, evoke that when it's been not there for a long time. But as shown by the example of the farm and in the example of the many people who I've worked with in their nervous system and my own nervous system, it's never actually completely uh, like it's dormant, but it's not actually, what's the word other than dead? Like it's not empty, it's not vacuous. It's just halted, it's frozen, it's immobile. But when given the proper ingredients, the proper resources, the proper encouragement, the proper cues, which are often not the cues happening in our overculture, but from those who have dedicated themselves to regrowing their nervous systems, slowly, diligently putting themselves in incubators and sanctuary spaces where that skill set is being built, then the soil begins to move and repopulate and become fertile and become complex and have all of those juicy microorganisms within it that are going to allow the natural blueprint to create life again. So this is why I say that investing in your nervous system is the best thing you can do for your life, because what it does fundamentally is shift you from this devolutionary pattern into an evolutionary pattern, and you suddenly feel much more free and safe to take risks in life, and to take the risks that you need to actually up-level your life, to be resourceful enough to not stay stuck in an identity that's this is as far as I can go in such and such an area of life, and I'll always be this way, and I can never have more, and just kind of like resigning to that. So, and shifting that exact trajectory is what I do in the one-to-one sessions and what we do in the sanctuary together in a collective. It's amplified in the collective because in the collective, we are feeding on the neurochemistry of each other. And that hundredth monkey feeling is more present because there's a culture of people who are choosing to invest in their nervous systems and to walk the evolutionary pathway instead of staying stuck. And it becomes easier to let go of the things in our lives that are keeping us stuck because we can see and feel the momentum of being part of a culture that's choosing an evolutionary pathway. So if this interests you and you want to speak further about the sanctuary and my work, please reach out.